Right, my friends. Now, today we'll be discussing about this one NCRT, what we have left in that series. So, four NCRT somewhere we have planned. That is class 11 two NCRTs and class 12 two NCRTs. That is physical geography of the world, physical geography of India, human geography of world, and human geography of India. And somewhere we were discussing based on the significance or importance in the examination. Accordingly, somewhere we know that physical geography of the world is very important. We have taken two classes to somewhere summarize and see what exactly I have to look or somewhere I have to search for the same in that particular book. Right? Physical geography of India also we have taken it, and I feel that, say, for example, these two books are very, very important. Right? And then third comes what? Human geography of India. Again, I have given you a selected chapters where exactly you can concentrate. Now, when it comes to human geography of the world, my dear friends, only conceptually we'll try to understand. Getting into depth is not needed because already some of the aspects we have somewhere related. We know, for example, when I say migration, what is migration? Okay. Somewhere, if I know, for example, primary activity, secondary activity, and tertiary activity in details, the factors affecting the same, somewhere we have taken in what? Indian geography itself. Okay. So, superficially, we'll try to discuss about it. Okay. Here, if you ask me, what are the chapters, what exactly I have to study, if you ask me, right? Somewhere, complete chapters, if you want to study, if you ask me, right, I would say that this world population, distribution, density, and growth, this chapter is important. Similarly, when I talk about population composition, the major ideas, the fundamental ideas of this population composition is important. Human development, say for example, I can take human development more from what? This human development index as such, right? Now here, when it comes to primary, secondary, and say for example, this tertiary activities, right? Primary activities, secondary activities, and tertiary activities, at best, what I should do, if you ask me, I should know, sir, what exactly these activities are, right? Only that somewhere I have to take it. Okay. What are the primary activities? What are the secondary activities? And what are the tertiary activities? Okay. Only that somewhere we have to understand. Okay. Right. Okay. Right, my friends. As I was saying, these are the topics what exactly will be somewhere right studying today. Transport and communication. Only say for example some of the very important transportation route if we are just taking for our discussion, that should be more than enough. So our major focus will be on this population. Okay, population of the world. We have seen population of India, and that too I told you when I was talking about the population of India. Somewhere I said that say for example that information is outdated. Outdated in the sense the last census, official census of India, somewhere we had in the year 2011, right? After 2011, we did not have this, say for example, this official census. Okay, right. Only thing is that 2023 or 24, right? I believe that 24 this census will be out. Okay, right. So having said that, I'll be starting with this world population distribution, density and growth. Okay, the basic ideas. Of course, summarizing entire NCRT in 1 hour not possible. So only thing is that the gist of it we'll be discussing about it. Okay, right. So, right, my friends. Now when I talk about population, right, distribution, density, and growth. Right. See, as of now, the world population, say for example, meter says that we have surpassed 8 billion in population. We are 8 billion plus in population. Okay, according to this world population meter. Earlier, it was somewhere anticipated that 2025 will be crossing this 8 billion mark, but 2023 itself we have crossed this 8 billion mark. Okay. And say, for example, NCERT also talks about some of the most populous countries, 10 most populous countries in the world. Of course, as of now, the most populous country is China, immediately followed by the closest neighbor is what? India. But see, if you ask me, what is the difference in population between China and India? Exact official information, exact official data are not available, but somewhere, again, going according to World Population Meter, the difference is less than somewhere, right? 5 million, correct? The difference is less than somewhere half a crore. So it is strongly anticipated that by somewhere by 2024 or 2025, India will be the most populous country in the world. Okay. So China's population somewhere I understand the growth rate, right? Say for example, is not increasing, right? But somewhere going by that way, somewhere we'll be overtaking China in the nearest future. Okay, right. Right, my dear friends. Now, somewhere NCERT talks about the most 10 populous countries of the world. Okay, right. So having said this, my dear friends, and one more thing, when I talk about, say, for example, the distribution here itself, it gives you one very important fact here. It says 90% of the world population lives in only about what 10% of the land. So this information or this fact gives you an idea that the distribution of population is highly uneven. Plenty of reasons are there. Normally we say carrying capacity of the land. You call them as what? Geo-demographic load-bearing capacity. Even say, for example, the case of India, somewhere we have taken it. States like Uttar Pradesh, states like Bihar, states like West Bengal, right? Population is very high. Density of population is also very high. And somewhere we justified the reason for it. What is the reason, if you ask me? Reason, it is a fertile plains, right? Every land has its own carrying capacity. Okay. For example, if I take the mountainous regions, tall mountains, right, with the snow caps, or if I talk about desert region, if I talk about polar ice caps, if I talk about equatorial or any rainforest with marshlands, these are the regions where I'll be having very less population or negligible population. So every land has its own carrying capacity. So distribution of population is highly uneven in nature. Okay, right. Now, having said this, my dear friends, if you ask me, okay, what is this density of population? Right, we'll talk about distribution in detail also. What is this density of population? Number of people living per square kilometer of an area or unit area, we call them as what? Density of population. So normally, how exactly density of population is calculated, if you ask me, right? It's simply the population of a country or a place is taken divided by its area. That's what gives you the density of population. Okay, right. And of course, you know the data. When somebody is asking you what exactly is the density of population in India, according to 2011 census, 382 people living per square kilometer of an area. Now, somewhere we would have surpassed, right, 410 or 420, right, by the time the census will be out. Now, if you ask me what exactly determines the density of population, plenty of factors. Number one, my dear friends, availability of waters, right? All places, for example, when I talk about distribution, few places, population is very thick. Normally, wherever, say, for example, we have more than 100 people living per square kilometer of an area, we call them as what? Ecumeny, right? Technically, you call them as what? Ecumeny. Okay. Somewhere I can say it is densely populated. Now, what makes that difference? Why exactly few places population is more and few places population is less? N number of factors are there. Number one is availability of water, right? When I say availability of water, it is fresh water, right? Say for example, potable water, okay, drinking water as well as for the practice of agriculture. Okay, number one. Number two, landforms. Going by that case, my dear friends, already I told you which is that landform where I'll be having, say for example, the maximum carrying capacity. If you ask me, obviously it is plains, right? The Gangetic Plains, my dear friends, is the most densely populated areas of the world. Okay, we know the reason because it is plains, fertile plains. Water is also available. Then climate. Whenever you have an extreme climate, the population will be less. Whenever you have a moderate climate, the population will be more. Generally, tropical climates, my dear friends, tropical climates, population will be more because winters are not too harsh. Okay. Summers are very harsh, that's okay, but winters are not so cold. Okay, right. Now, somewhere NCERT also talks about the region-wide density of population, right? Somewhere going by that, right, where exactly I have maximum density of population, obviously it is well understandable, it is Asia. Similarly, where exactly I have the minimum density of population, Oceania. Oceania includes Australia, New Zealand, and including them 14 other countries. Okay, right. Fine. Then, apart from that, right, climate, soil also plays a very, very important role, because I understand soil is very important for the practice of agriculture. Agriculture is very important for the sustenance of the population. All these are natural factors, right? And we do have economic factors. We do have a pull factors, that is, say, for example, resulted due to what? Minerals. Because if you have minerals, certainly speaking, say, for example, mining as an activity will be taking place. Industries will be somewhere set up near the place. So, minerals, urbanization, industrialization can also pull the population. Okay, right. You call them as what? Economic factors. We do have social and cultural factors, right? Social and cultural factors. Say, for example, even when you talk about social and cultural factors, my dear friends, right? It says some places attracts more people because they have religious or cultural significance, right? In the same way, people tend to move away from the places where there is a social and political unrest, right? Migration. To be very precise, you call them as what? Emigration. Okay, fine. Plenty of factors are there. Just the subheading, if I can understand, that should be more than enough. See, human geography fact is less. It is all about concept. Okay, simple concept. I have to put myself in a situation and I have to check that what exactly is going to happen. Something like that. Okay, now we'll talk about population growth, my dear friends. Growth of population. Okay, see, when I talk about growth of population, I understand given the scenario, the entire global order, if you ask me, yes, we are there in the rising trend. The population is increasing continuously, it is increasing. It is more like a J curve. In theory, is human geography, we have both S curve and J curve, but it is more like J curve. Okay, I'll talk about this J curve as such. It looks like J, alphabet J. That's the reason you call them as what? J curve. Now, when I talk about, say, for example, the natural growth of population, right? See, population growth can be positive or it can be negative also. If you ask me what exactly is a natural growth, or simply, when population increases, for example, I have something called as birth rate, sometimes also called as what? Somewhere, when I talk about birth, okay, you call them as what? Birth rate, right? And somewhere I have something called as death rate. Birth rate versus death rate. If I just talk about birth rate, of course, I understand number of children's born per thousand people, right? In a population, you can call them as what? Birth rate. The similar, you call them as what? Death rate. Okay. Or make it the rate and all, you leave it. When I talk about the natural growth, what is this natural growth? It is simply the birth minus the death, right? It is fertility, right? Minus the mortality, something like that. Okay, right. In that way, my dear friends, when I talk about the natural growth in the population, the natural growth in the population includes only the difference between birth and death rate. Very, very important. It do not includes migration, right? But if you ask me, okay, that is natural growth. What is the actual growth of population? Along with this, actual growth of population also take into consideration of migration. Migration includes both inward and outward, right? Immigration as well as emigration, both. Immigration is outward, immigration is inward. Okay, so this is very, very important. You may somewhere note it down also, right? When I talk about population, right? Natural growth, if you ask me, it is the difference only between birth and death. Okay, if the number of birth is more than the number of death, the population will increase. Otherwise, it is going to decrease. But if you ask me, actual growth of population also includes migration, right? So, having said this, my dear friends, what is positive growth of population? What is negative growth of population? Yes, we can anticipate. Okay, right, fine. Now, if you compute it, you have this component of population change, not so important, we leave it. Now, coming to the migration, my difference. Even last time when we were discussing about this human geography of India, there we talked about migration, and I told you what exactly is migration in Indian terms, right? Change of residence, change of residence. Say, for example, which is different from the previous census, you call them as what? Migration. But here, when talk about migration, apart from birth and death, there is another way by which population size increases. When people move from one place to another, the place they move from is called as place of origin, source. And the place where they move to, you call them as what? Place of destination, right? The place of origin shows a decrease in population, obviously. People are moving outward, right? Well, while the population increases in the place of destination. For example, if you ask me, countries like, say, for example, most of the countries, right? I can take for Oceania, Australia. If you ask me, right, when I talk about the population growth, more than the, say, for example, right, actual, say, for example, the natural growth rate of population, what is dominant there is what? The actual growth of population. Migration plays a very, very important role, that too in a developed countries. Okay, right. Fine. So what is migration? Simply a change of place, right? You have a source, you have a destination. You have an origin, you have a destination. Of course, most of the time, the place of origin, I'll be having a push factor. In the place of destination, I'll be having a pull factor. What is push and pull factor? Somewhere I understand they are perceptional. But somewhere, my dear friends, right? Somewhere as an informed citizen, I can always understand what exactly is a push and pull factor. Maybe I'll read it out. The push factors makes the place of origin seems less attractive for the reasons like unemployment, poor living condition, political turmoil, unpleasant climate, natural disaster, epidemics, socio-economic backwardness. I would add one more word called as etc. Okay. Almost say for example, every fact is covered here. Even say for example, political unrest. Okay. All of a sudden, if war starts, right? Ukraine is the finest example where you find that people started, say for example, right, almost moving out of Ukraine. When say for example, the Sri Lankan liberation war started, say for example, almost right, more of a refugee problem we had in India. Correct. So somewhere we understand, say for example, whenever the unrest starts, right? Obviously outward migration. Obviously, always say for example, places like countries like Myanmar will be having more of a push factor. Most of the, say for example, countries in Africa, they have their own internal problems, right? Even you have something called as internally displaced people, right? IDPs. So what is a push factor? This is the factor which generally somewhere, right, it will be having its presence in the place of origin. Then comes pull factor. When talk about pull factor, right? Pull factor makes the place of destination, right? It seems or it makes destination seems more attractive than the place of origin. Wherever, right? For example, push factor, wherever when I talk about origin, in the place of origin, you have unemployment, perception. Okay. Maybe the pull factor is the place where you give good opportunities of job opportunities. Am I right? Not only that, right? Better living condition. There, say for example, when I talk about push factor, it is poor living condition, push factor, better living condition. Source of place, political turmoil. Here it is peace and stability. See the difference. Okay, exactly opposite. But whatever be the case, whether it is push factor or pull factor, most of the time it is perceptional, my dear friends. Okay, right. So what is migration? We have an idea. What is push factor? What is pull factor? We have an idea. Where exactly they have their effectivity, that also we know. Now we'll talk about the trend in population growth. This is the place where we'll be discussing about this J curve, right? We'll be discussing about this J curve. Okay. Now, my dear friends, see here, when I talk about this population growth over a period of time, right? Starting from historical, right? Historical, say, for example, from the, right, the development of the modern human being, if I just take it, what I understand, the growth of population was very, very, say, for example, gentle, very slow, right? Very slow. But few of the places you find a spike somewhere in 1750s, middle of 18th century, somewhere you find a spike. And if you ask me what exactly is the reason for this spike, we would say it is all about what? Industrial revolution. Okay. Again, say for example, somewhere when I talk about, say for example, spike, right? 1950, my dear friends. Somewhere around 1950s, you find, right, a very great spike. The rate of growth is exponential. And if you ask me, what can be the reason for that spike? Believe me or not, it is freedom, right? Not only India, not only say for example India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan, right? Number of countries, right? Post formation of United Nations, plenty of African colonies were made free. Plenty of countries in Asia were made free. Okay. So somewhere I understand my difference is population growth and freedom goes hand in hand. Okay. Now, all of a sudden, say for example, when I talk about the rate at which the population were doubling, right? I'll show you that chart also, right? The rate at which it was doubling, right? Earlier, my dear friends, earlier, right? When I talk about, say, for example, the time, how much time it has taken for the population to double initially, right? For example, what is double? If I have 5 million, how this 5 million, how time this 5 million takes to become 10 million, correct? It means it took 1500 years, right? Later, my dear friends, very near to this industrial revolution, somewhere it took 154 years, right? Further, when I talk about, say, for example, right, almost at the verge of this, say, for example, the freedom and the others, right? I understand the time taken for the population to double, it has somewhere come down to 47 years. See the difference. The population at one place or one instance was doubling at 1500 years. Now the population every 47 years or approximately every 50 years, the population is almost doubling. Am I right? Say for example, another say for example, 50 years, this 8 billion will become what? 16 billion, something like this. Okay, right. Right. Again, if you ask me what exactly is the reason, right? N number of reasons are there. Technological advancement is also one of the reasons for the same. Okay. Right. So each and every spike, you have a reason for it, right? Say, for example, advancement in medical science, yes. The death rate will be declining, so the population growth will be increasing. Okay. Right. Right, my friends. When I talk about the spatial pattern, this we talked about this doubling. When I talk about the spatial pattern of population change, spatial pattern, right? What we understand when I talk about, say, for example, world, right? Growth rate. When I talk about the growth rate, what exactly is the rate at which the population is growing? Somewhere it was growing at 1.2 percentage almost, say, for example, every year. That's what I should take it. But where exactly the rate of population is very high, which continent, if you ask me, it is Africa. So projection says, right, at times the population of Africa, if at all, if the same rate continues, right, African population will be more than what Asia's population. If the same projection continues, I am saying. Okay, right. Right, my difference. The impact of population. Okay, somewhere we leave it. Right. What is very important, my difference? This demographic transition model is very, very important. Right. Somewhere I'll give you a gist. Kindly go through it. See, this demographic transition model, by difference, actually there is a five stage, right? There is a five stage, right? Here, only say for example, high fluctuating, early expanding, late expanding, low fluctuating is given. Okay. What is given as expanding? Expanding itself we can divide into two stages, right? Early expanding and late expanding. Okay. Then there is also, say for example, almost a stage called as decline. Okay. So this demographic transition model, maybe this diagram is slightly, right? Say for example, I'll put it this way, it is incomplete, right? I'll take this demographic transition model. Okay. Now here, yeah, most of the time you will be finding this demographic transition model comes with five stage. Only thing is that I also want to take this population growth and decline. Okay, approximately I'll show you. Maybe a better placed diagram. Yeah, this should be better. Okay, see here. Actually, we have this five stages in demographic transition model. Demographic transition model, somewhere it goes in a unidimensional format, that somewhere saying that how one traditional society, almost in the event of becoming modern society, say for example, the population also has a character. Or it says, in the evolution of population, any society normally goes through five phases or five stages. What are the five stages? One stage you call them as what? High stationary. Okay. Here in NCERT, high stationary is given Both expanding, only one stage of expanding is given, but here the expanding itself we are dividing into two. One is early expanding and two is late expanding. Then the fourth stage you call them as what? Low stationary, and fifth stage we call them as what? Decline. Right. Again in NCERT, decline is not given. Okay. Decline is not given. Okay. Right. Now here, my dear friends, what I understand in the, say for example, in the past, what we find somewhere you find two lines here. One is birth rate and two is death rate. Right. Fertility rate and mortality rate. Okay. Now in the somewhere in the historical past, right? Maybe in the very traditional society, I should put it this way, it is more like an animism, right? More like, say, for example, right, not even a civilized society, maybe it is more like a tribal culture if I just take it. Birth rate is also high, death rate is also high because of what happens. Because of that, population will be less. That's the reason you call them as what? Right. You call them as what? High stationary. Okay. You call them as what? High stationary. I repeat again, birth rate is also high, death rate is also high. So the population is what? Less. Now, always I understand, right? Demographic transition model says death rate will decline first, only eventually the birth rate will decline. Why death rate declines first, if you ask me, it is because of the technological advancement, particularly in the field of medicine. Okay, so as the case, what happens? Life expectancy will increase. If the life expectancy increases, birth rate will refuse to reduce, but death rate will decrease. More is the gap between birth rate and death rate, the population will tend to increase at a fast rate. At a fast rate. And my dear friends, this is the time, right? When exactly this is the time where normally you experience a phenomena called as what? Population explosion. And if you ask me third stage, what is the marked difference of a third stage? Third stage is the place where birth rate is also declining, death rate is also declining, but still the difference between birth rate and death rate is still there. So this is a stage, my dear friends, where population grows, but the rate of growth of population decreases. Okay. If that is the case, my dear friends, when I talk about India, country like India, we are somewhere here. We are somewhere here, right? Almost in the near future, we'll be somewhere getting transformed to the next stage. Okay, right. Fourth stage is the time, or fourth stage is that stage, what you call them as what? Low stationary. This is the time when, right, you cannot reduce the death rate further. It becomes what? Almost isostatic. Okay, but birth rate still continues to decline. So this is a stage where almost this population becomes a, say for example, a stagnant population. Almost this population becomes what? Almost neither it decreases nor it increases, something very close to that. Stage 5, we call them as what? Declining stage. This is the time when birth rate will start declining further. Death rate will not decline further. Okay, birth rate will decline further. So when the birth rate declines further, if the birth rate is more than the death rate, this is the time when, say for example, the population will start declining. Japan is a classical example of this declining population. Okay, and one more thing, this demographic transition model and economic growth, they are very closely associated. There is a very famous statement of United Nations. It says, economic development or socio-economic development is the best contraceptive what is available. So generally it says that with socio-economic advancement, it is very natural order that the birth rate will decline. Okay, that's what this statement says. Okay, right, my dear friends. Now, demographic transition model. What exactly the different stages of this model talks about? Somewhere we have an idea. Okay. Right, my difference. Population control measures and all. Somewhere we can have it. Ethically, somewhere if you ask me, what are the policies that normally antenatal policies will means? Antenatal countries will be following. Obviously, it is all that to reduce the fertility rate, to reduce the birth rate. Certainly speaking, right, population shall not be reduced by increasing the death rate. Obvious. Okay. So fertility rate or birth rate has to be decreased. Okay, in the accepted manner. Fine. So this is all about the very first chapter, right, regarding this population, my friends. Now we'll talk about population composition. Coming to this population composition, my dear friends. Okay. Population composition. Sometimes this population composition, we also call them as what? Age sex pyramid. Okay. How exactly the population is distributed between the three groups of age and between the two genders. Sex composition. Here, only the male and female is taken, the third gender universally so far, right? Officially, it is not included. Even in India, only say, for example, few states have their own census information regarding the third gender. Okay, right. Now, if you ask me sex composition, what is the sex ratio? I can call it a sex ratio. Country to country, how exactly they calculate it differs. But India, it is number of females per, say, for example, 1,000 males, my dear friends. This is what the sex ratio. For every, say, for example, male population, 1,000 male population, how many females are there? Okay, that is what, say, for example, Indian system is all about. Right, approximately now we have somewhere around 940 female for every 1,000 male. If I remember the fact correctly, this is what the sex ratio is all about. The recent past, we are seeing a positive trend where sex ratio is what? Increasing. It is promising. Okay, 940, right? Earlier census, 2011, what I believe that it is 940. Earlier it was 933. Before that it was 927. So 1991 census. 91 census it was 27. 2001 census it was 33. 2011 census it was 940. So somewhere we are seeing the constant increase. Okay, I repeat again. The number of female per 1,000 males in Indian classification, you call them as what? Sex ratio. And some of the countries, right? It is vice versa. They calculate the number of male per, say, for example, female. That is also right, is practiced. Right. So, what is the sex ratio or sex composition? We have just taken it. Now, I was just talking about this age sex pyramid, right? Very popularly, you call them as what? Age sex pyramid. Why exactly you call them as what? Age sex pyramid? Because this almost looks like a pyramid. Now, see, you may not say, for example, accept that this is a pyramid, but initially, when it was formulated, it was looking like a pyramid. Okay, something like that. I'll take it this way, right? Only if I'm just taking the upper half of this, like for example, structure, right? It looks like a pyramid. That's the reason you call them as what? Age sex pyramid. Because here you are dividing the population into different age group, right? And you're also dividing them into what? Different, say, for example, groups in the form of, say, for example, on the basis of sex, female and male. Okay, that's why you call them as what? Age sex pyramid. In terms of age, how exactly you divide them? Universally, right? You call them as what? Young. You call them as what? Mature. You call them as what? Old. Okay, young, mature, and old. When talk about young population, my friends, normally, right, it is 0 to 14 years of age, right? 0 to 14 years of age, you call them as what? Young. Okay. And if you ask me, right, what is mature? Normally it is 15 to 59 or 60 or 64, right? 64. This age is not universally determined, but starts from 15. So normally this 15, even 65 you can take it, nothing wrong on it. 15 to 65, you call them as what? Mature population. More than 65, you call them as what? Old population. My dear friends, this population, right, what I have between this 15 to 65 is what we call them as what? Working age population. Working age. Okay. Working age. Today, if you ask me, which country in the world has majority of mature population, even you means I cannot call it as a youth population. I call them as what? Working age population. Right? Of course, you know the answer, right? If you ask me, right, which country has the maximum of this working age population? Of course, it is India, right? See, we do have a concept called as dependency ratio. What is dependency ratio, right? For example, it is the ratio between the working age population, that is mature, is to young plus old. Okay, right? This is the ratio. Okay, somewhere, what exactly is the, say, for example, working age population? And this young plus old, we call them as what? Dependent population. They are dependent. Okay, they are dependent. Assuming that they may not work, they may not earn. dependent. Normally what we say, if the mature age group, right, the number of people in mature age group is more than the combined population of young and old put together, the situation results in a condition called as demographic dividend. Demographic dividend. If you ask me what exactly is dividend, dividend is profit. So here, population composition is giving you an advantage for economic growth. That is what you call them as what demographic dividend. Because who determines the growth rate of a country? Who determines the rate of economic or say for example almost social progress? If you ask me, it is this mature group, right? If I have more mature population, obviously speaking, somewhere I can accelerate the economic growth of this country. Of course, the economic growth can get transformed into, say, for example, the economic development and social development. Correct? So, somewhere this condition is very, very important. And my dear friends, presently, India is experiencing this. Say, for example, if I'm not wrong, till say, for example, 2054 or 53, somewhere, right? Till 2050s, we'll be enjoying this benefit. We'll be enjoying this benefit. It means, say, for example, our population somewhere we are having the right composition if utilized properly, if the skill set of these people, say for example this mature age group is somewhere enhanced, right, for the requirement of the economic growth, obviously speaking, the rate of economic growth of India will be, say for example, very very high. Okay. And of course, to reiterate what exactly, say for example, our prime minister have, honorable prime minister have said in US, right? If India grows, the world will grow. For India to grow, this mature age group, the skill set should get developed. Okay, right. Right, my dear friends. Why exactly it is called as age sex pyramid? Somewhere I said, right? Normally, if you somewhere construct for any ordinary or the whole world as such, young population will be more, then slightly less will be mature, slightly less will be old. That's why you call them as what? Pyramid. Now, see, somewhere looking at the size, shape of the pyramid, also you can say that whether, say, for example, this population is increasing, decreasing, or stable. How? I'll tell you. For example, here I'm just showing you, say, for example, a graph. See here, Nigeria, perfect pyramid, perfect pyramid. That's why you call them as what? Age sex pyramid. Okay. Now, normally, my difference, developed countries, the height of the pyramid will be more because life expectancy will be more. Right. Okay. Whatever it is the case. Now, I find, say, for example, the young population added is very high, the old population is very less. It means, right, birth rate is very, very high, right? Whereas death rate will be very, very insignificant. See the difference, right? For example, if I talk about the, say, for example, almost the old people versus, it is more like replacement, right? It is more like a replacement, correct? See how exactly how many children are born and how many, say, for example, almost there is a mortality rate and fertility rate. If I compare, there is no, say, for example, comparison at all. Okay. But on the other hand, it is increasing population. Somewhere it is not only expanding population, my difference. This such pyramid, my difference, it is exponentially increasing in size, right? Right. On the other hand, say for example, when I talk about, say for example, constant population, what is this constant population? Somewhere, if I take the population of the old and somewhere if I take the population of the young, somewhere I understand it is replaced. Nearly it is replaced. The number of mortality rate is somewhere compensated by the number of fertility rate or fertility rate. Constant population. See the other pyramid, declining population, right? Declining population, right? When I talk about declining population, somewhere old age population is very high in comparison with what? The children's who were recently born. Okay. This is a situation where population will decline. And my dear friends, one thing, if you take it very, very seriously, very keenly, if you look at this, say for example, graph, right? All this graph, you'll be finding one thing. You'll be finding one thing. Whenever I just talk about old age, old population, It is universal trend. You'll be finding that more of female population than of male population. Age-wise, if I am just taking the sex ratio, you'll be finding at old age, female sex ratio female sex ratio is always positive. If I have more than 1,000 female per 1,000 male, this type of sex ratio we call them as what? Positive sex ratio, right? At the old age, you will be finding that this sex ratio is most of the time it is positive. If you ask me why, right? I'll give you one more trend also, one more image also you can find it, right? Somewhere you can find it. Here also you find the same trend. Okay. You find the same trend. Here also I find that, say, for example, number of male is less and female is more. Why, if you ask me? Simple. Universally, the life expectancy of female is more than the life expectancy of male. There comes somewhere around 3 to 4 years of difference between life expectancy of male and female. Indian case also you take it, somewhere you can see the same. Okay, right. Right, my dear friends, the urban-rural composition may not be needed. Okay, now here I was talking about this young population, right? Here the age given is what? 15 to 59. Some of the countries it is 15 to 65. Am I right? So this 59, there is no clear-cut, say for example, almost demarcation, country to country, it varies. Okay. Now coming to literacy, my difference. What is literacy? Right? Normal understanding, bookish definition, we say that a person who can able to read, write with basic understanding in any of the languages of the world, you call them as what? Literate. Okay, literate. Okay. Now, if that is the definition, my dear friends, only thing is that I have to understand, say, for example, what exactly is the definition of literate or literacy in India? Who is a literate in India? Right? Here, see, for example, perfect definition. This is Indian definition. Literate denotes the percentage of population above 7 years who is able to read, write, and have an ability to do arithmetic calculation with understanding. Our Indian classification, if you ask me, this arithmetic calculation is not there. Okay. What is our definition of literacy, if you ask me? Any person who is 7 years of age and above, who can read, write, and have a basic understanding in any of the language. It can be any language, not only Indian language, any language, right? With a script, right? It should have a script. You call them as what? Literate. I'll tell you, I'll show you. Okay. So according to Indian classification, according to 2011 census, any person aged 7 and above has the ability to read and write. Understanding is also there. Here they have not given understanding, right? Understanding is very, very important. Not only read and write. I'll take the document itself, census document. Reason, if I can show you that exact census document, I believe that word understanding is also there, right? Along with you, I'll also get confirmed. Yeah. So somewhere I'm just opening one portal, right? India.gov.in. Okay, assuming that, yeah, this is right, official website. Okay. Now here, definition. A person aged 7 and above who can both, very important, read and write with understanding in any language, right? Understanding is very important, right? Understanding in any language is treated as literate. Okay. This is Indian definition of literacy. Okay. Right. Right, my dear friends. Now, what is literate? We have an idea. Others, let's ignore it. Okay. Now, moving on to the next topic, right? The world population, distribution, density, and growth, we have taken it. The population composition also we have taken it. Human development, I said, right, let's go more with human development index. That should be fine enough, right? Now let me take the case of primary, secondary, and tertiary activities, my dear friends. Okay. Only these three we'll just talk about. What are the primary activities? See, okay. And talk about primary activity. See, for example, even economic activity, there was an evolution. There was an evolution, right? Almost say, for example, life started with, say, for example, hunting and gathering food. Slowly, steadily, the domestication started. The practice of agriculture started, and slowly, steadily, the processing, service, and so on, it started. Okay. Now, everything, even say, for example, right? When I talk about the evolutionary process of the economic activity, somewhere I understand, right? From it is more like animism, right? More like animism, right? Hunting and gathering, slowly, steadily, say, for example, the society started towards the organized economic activity. In that way, if you ask me what exactly is primary activity, right? Or primary economic activity, right? In that way, my dear friends, somewhere I am skipping hunting and gathering, right? What do you mean by, say, for example, pastoralism? Pastoral means, sorry, pastoralism means pastoralism, nomadic herding, right? Nomadic herding. All this I'm skipping, right? Even say, for example, commercial livestock rearing, everything I'm just skipping. Okay, if you want somewhere, I'll just touch it. When I talk about this nomadic herding, simple. When I talk about, say, for example, this is the time when, right, we started with domestication of, say, for example, right, the livestocks. Okay, domestication of the livestocks as such. Okay, if at all, if it is done in a very small scale, am I right? Very small scale, right? In a very primitive fashion, you call them as what? Nomadic herding. And the same if it is somewhere, say, for example, almost done, right? With more input cost, more organized, right? You call them as what? Commercial livestock rearing. Okay. Now, having said this, my dear friends, having said this, even when I talk about agricultural practice, okay, I'll come to this, right? Now, I'll directly talk about primary activity. For example, I said, what is primary activity if you ask me? Normally, we know that, say, for example, agriculture is primary activity. That is okay. But only thing is that the greatest question, what about mining? Does mining come under primary activity or not? Yes. See here, maybe as a layman, if I want to understand, I'll put it in this way. Whatever nature process you extract, you call them as what? Primary activity. What we process, right? And there comes the finished product. You call them as what? Secondary activity. In that way, when I talk about, say, for example, agriculture, yes, mostly it is processed by the nature. Right. If that is the case, when I talk about mining as an activity, minerals are available in what? Nature. So, to be very precise, mining as an activity is also very much part and parcel of this primary activity. Okay, I'll come to this later, mining. But when I talk about agriculture, of course, I understand what exactly is agriculture. Now, when I talk about agriculture, my dear friends, normally the agricultural practice based on the land where you, say, for example, almost have your plantation or you practice this cropping, you call them as what? Subsistence farming and commercial farming versus intensive farming versus extensive farming, right? Now, if you ask me what exactly is subsistence, right? Generally, if you ask me subsistence, normally we say that if at all, say, for example, farmers, say, for example, almost cultivate mostly for their own consumption, you call them as what? Subsistence farming. I'm not very sure whether the definition is given or not. Subsistence farming is one in which the farming area consumes all or nearly so of the products locally grown. Okay, farmers, okay, consume so. Okay, or in simple terms, I would say if farmers are consuming or farmers are growing the crops mostly for their own use, you call them as what? Subsistence farming. If at all it is for the economic gain, right? Surplus, if it is sold to the market, you call them as what? Commercial cropping. Am I right? So, for example, when I talk about, say, for example, agriculture, primitive agriculture, my dear friends, mostly we had this slash and burn agriculture, right? Slash and burn agriculture, or sometimes you also call them as what? Shifting agriculture. In the sense, right? The same land will not be practicing what? agriculture. Slowly, steadily, for example, we'll be using a land. Then after that, say for example, we'll burn this land, right? Again, a new land somewhere will be, say for example, we'll be identifying a new land, deforested. Again, it will be cultivated. Again, will be going on, right? Even in India, we had such practice. Northeastern state, the slash and burn agriculture is called as what? Zoom cultivations. Okay. Very popularly, you call them as what? Zooming in Northeastern state. The same practice you call them as what? Milpa in Central America and ladang in, say, for example, almost in Indonesia and Malaysian region. Okay, right. Now, what is subsistence farming? We have an idea. It is all about, right? Intensive subsistence farming. Okay. When they say intensive subsistence farming, right? Now, what is this intensive versus extensive, if you ask me, right? We'll not get into the details, but I'll tell you. When the land holding of a farmer is very, very less, when the larger availability of the land is not there, say for example, somewhere with a limited land, right? When the population density is more, when the per capita availability of the land is available is very, very less, they go for what? Intensive, say for example, farming practice, where, right, within a small land, maximum growth has to be done. On the other hand, if you ask me what is extensive, say for example, extensive agricultural practice, very simple. More land is somewhere covered in the cultivation. That is what you call them as what? Extensive agricultural practice. Wherever density of population is more, obviously it will be intensive agricultural practice. Wherever density of population is less, obviously speaking, there you will be having extensive agricultural practice. That is universal. Okay, right. Somewhere, my dear friends, the concept wise, this is very simple. Somewhere, just go through it. And some of the topics you also find it as mixed farming. What is this mixed farming, right? Somewhere, if you say, for example, almost see, mixed farming is an umbrella term. Within that, I can say, for example, almost bring about crop rotation. I can talk about intercropping, right? I can talk about integrated farming. Everything I can somewhere fix it under this mixed farming as such. Okay, right. Mediterranean agriculture and all, I am not touching it, right? And wherever this bold letters, italics are given, kindly say, for example, just see what exactly they are. Okay, right? Because somewhere they say Mediterranean region is known for viticulture. What is viticulture? Viticulture is more like grape cultivation. Okay. Now, my dear friends, one more term I'll give you. For example, somewhere while reading, you'll be coming across something called as what? Truck farming. What is this truck farming? Very simple. Say, for example, we had this Wantunan's agricultural, right? Zonations or agricultural land use, right? So there, say for example, he has demarcated some of the areas where the fruits and vegetables are cultivated, right? So what brings these fruits and vegetables to the city center is the trucks. Am I right? So normally, say for example, there comes this something called as truck farming as such. Okay. So what is truck farming today? If you ask me, regions where farmers specialize in vegetables only. Am I right? The farming is called as truck farming. Okay. Right. Right. And of course, others are not so important, right? Mining, my difference. Again, I'm putting a word. Mining very well comes under this primary activity, right? Kindly regard it as what? Primary activity itself. Mining as an activity. What are the different types of mining? What do you mean by shaft mining? What is open cast mining? Okay, that you read it, somewhere you can understand, right? What you see here, right? Say, for example, right? You call them as what? Open cast mining, right? Open cast mining. Surface of the earth, you dig it. You call them as what? Open cast mining. Where you'll be having, say, for example, somewhere you'll be having a shaft and somewhere you'll be drilling deep and there you'll be venturing out. This is what you call them as what? Shaft mining. These are the two types of mining what we have. Okay. If the minerals are available in the surface itself, you'll be going for open cast mining. The minerals are available deep inside the earth surface, you'll be going for what? Shaft mining. And not only that, even in a wetter location, if the location is very wet, right, but still good minerals are there, right, you'll be going for what? Shaft mining as such. Okay, right. So this is all about primary activity. Again, I'm telling you, agriculture and mining both are included in primary activity. Okay. Now, when I talk about secondary activity, my dear friends, very simple. Industries, manufacturing. See here, Secondary activity can be anything. It is some manufacturing industry. Here, I can also have agricultural produce also, say for example, being processed. Such industries, we call them as what? Agro-based industries. Rest of them, simply you call them as what? Say for example, manufacturing industries as such. Now here, whenever you process somewhere, I'll be having a finished product or finished goods. I can physically feel it. Am I right? That's what you say, call them as what? Say for example, this secondary activity, particularly manufacturing. Okay, right. Now here, when I talk about setting up of an industry, my friends, already we discussed about it earlier, but still if you ask me, the industries are not evenly distributed. The industries are highly, say for example, uneven when it comes to what? Geographic distribution as such. Okay. Again, say for example, that 90-10 percentage works. Okay. Right. When I talk about, say for example, industries, they say these covers less than 10 percentage of the world's land. I mean, major concentration of modern manufacturing industries, right? They are somewhere located only in less than 10 percentage of the world's area, right? Okay. Now again, if you ask me, right, what are the different factors, right, which somewhere determines the locational aspect of industries, right? Plenty of factors are there, right? What determines them? Number one, access to the market. Where is the market? Because once you finish the goods, the market is produced, the goods are produced. Where exactly you'll be selling it? You'll be selling it in the market. Market access is very important. Not only market, where exactly you get the raw material. Indian case is the finest example, my difference. Where iron and steel industry in India is located, concentrated, if you ask me, Chota Nagpur Plateau, Jharkhand. Why? Because Chota Nagpur Plateau is the place where I have the raw material for iron and steel industry. Number one, right, metallic minerals, right? Of course, I have, say, for example, the ores of the iron. Apart from that, I have one more raw material called as what? Coal. Both are concentrated there, raw material oriented. Then access to the labor supplies, of course, right? You should have a qualitative labor and the quantity of labor should also be on a higher side. Access to the source of energy, I told you, right? Iron and steel industry itself. One of the source of energy is what? Coal. Very important. Access to the transportation facilities and the communication facilities. Because what connects the place of raw material to the industry and industry to the market is transportation, right? Transportation is the lifeline of any development or economic activity. Okay. Government policies, they are non-geographical in nature, but somewhere government policies plays a very, very important role. For example, when I talk about Mahalanobis model, right? Second five-year plan in India, where industries are developed because of the, say, for example, government policies as such, right? Industries are seen as the growth poles and growth centers. Once you bring the industries, it is believed that they will grow. They will somewhere, say, for example, almost increase the, right, almost unemployment opportunity. And over a period of time, the entire region will get what? Developed. Trickle down effect, they call it as. Okay, right. Access to agglomeration economies is also, say, for example, a factor what you can consider as. Okay. The classification of manufacturing industries is not that much needed, but Indian case that is needed. Right. What do you mean by micro, small, and medium and large scale industries? That classification is needed. Global classification is not needed. Okay. So this is a broad idea about these industries. Indian industries are more important than the global industries as such. And finally, today's topic, my dear friends, tertiary and quaternary activities, if I'm just taking it, right? Tertiary. What is this tertiary? Whenever I talk about any industry, my dear friends, it is all about goods and services. Whichever industry produces goods, finished product, physical product, you call that industry as the secondary sector industry. Whichever industry a service is provided, am I right? No value addition of any product, right? Only the service is provided. You call them as what? Tertiary industries. Okay. And if you ask me what is quaternary industries, quaternary industry is more like knowledge-based industry. It's more like knowledge-based industries. Somewhere I'll take it this way, right? When I talk about, say, for example, service sector, right? Service sector. Okay. I can include this tertiary and quaternary. I also already told you quaternary is more like R&D information based, etc. Okay. Say for example, right, we also have something called as quinary activities, specialist decision making, policy formulation and all, right? We'll take it till quaternary activity. Nothing wrong, you can also mark it. But when I talk about tertiary activities, only service provided. What are they? Trade and commerce, without value addition, right? No value addition. Am I right? Transport, communication, and other services. These services can include banking services, insurance, right? Etc. When I talk about communication, obviously, when I talk about telecommunication and say, for example, net provider, internet provider can also be somewhere covered under this communication. Transport, all means of transport, road, rail, water, air, everything you can add it. Am I right? And of course, trade and commerce can also be what added. This chart is very, 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 very important. So, what are the primary activities we said? Agriculture, not only agriculture, also includes what? Mining. Secondary sector, manufacturing, where you have a finished product. Service sector, right? Only the service, right? You cannot touch it and feel it by hand, but you can feel it only by your heart, something like this. Okay. Having said that, we also know what exactly is quaternary activity. Am I right? There comes almost the summarization of the important topics of this class 12 NCERT called as fundamentals of human geography. Right, my dear friends, on more occasions, we'll just say, for example, keep meeting each other, right? And as I said, NCERT, whatever is given in bold and italics, kindly give more emphasis for these topics, right? Rest, constant revision should make you comfortable. So thank you and God bless once again. At some other occasions we'll meet. Thank you.